The home of jump racing. This is where the magic happens. Feel like a Cheltenham favourite with Paddy Power.
Hello everyone, welcome to the new series of Road to Cheltenham. Ruby Walsh and I are stoked and ready to go, and we are back in the studio, Ruby, on a sort of timeshare 1 week on, 1 week off basis.
Yeah, that was the balance in the negotiation, wasn't it? I thought I'd come out a little bit better, but sure, look, I have to take what I got.
I think we're keeping an eye on our global carbon footprint.
That's the idea, definitely, yeah. Air miles, keeping it down, you know, we're doing our bit for the environment.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does mean you've had to gift your private jet to Boris Johnson. Now, I thought that was a nice gesture.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, Micheál Martin didn't want it, so I told Boris he could have it.
Well, he's got some use out of it already, so that's really good. Looking ahead to the rest of the season, that's what we'll be doing during the course of this programme. Now, if you're a regular roadie, you know what Road to Cheltenham is all about, but if you are new to the show, what we do each week is keep an eye on the developing form lines of the jump season from now until the Cheltenham Festival in March, but also at Aintree and at Pensionstown there'll be shows for that as well. And we're also as interested here on the Road to Cheltenham in the journey as well as the various destinations. So Ruby, from last season, what did you think you learned?
I learned that the Irish were incredibly dominant over the English. I didn't ever think I would see that happen. I didn't think it would happen last year, but I think you quickly realised when the Cheltenham Festival began that this was going to be quite dominant on the Irish front, and they were. They were unbelievably dominant in the graded races outside of Shishkin, and even in the handicaps, Lydia, they just had the upper hand everywhere.
And do you see that changing at all this season?
No, these things are cyclical, so it won't turn quickly. I think this year will be the same. The following year it'll start ebbing its way back to equilibrium before it swings back in British favour, but that's just the circle of life, is it?
I'm glad you're confident it is actually going to swing back. Let's cling to that, shall we? You mentioned handicapping. Lots of people were blaming handicapping for what happened at Cheltenham. I mean, as you pointed out, Ireland's so dominant in the graded races, it can't just be that. But it has brought about some changes to handicapping over here in Britain. They had a look at their distribution curve and they decided that the bulge, where it was a bit too high, basically their uppage, they've got some of their horses too high and they had to shift everything downwards.
Inflation, deflation, that what you call that? What did you put, big fancy words? Uppage, right.
I think it was less fancy than inflation and deflation, actually.
Uppage, that's a new one on me, but yeah, deflation. But look, the graded races are where are the best horses, and they just happen to be in Ireland at the moment. But the handicapping, yeah, I think that here in the UK, because of inflation over a considerable period of time, all your horses are too high.
Small fields?
Well, small fields add to a different problem too. I mean, you look at today, for instance, or this afternoon, there was a couple of 0 to 100 chases run in the UK between Taunton, Sedgefield, Market Raise and wherever they were exactly. But because you have 3 of them, those fields are split. So you end up with 3 winners and the seconds going up, 3 third, fourth horses staying where they are, and then the rest coming down. Whereas if they're all in the one race, you have 2 going up, 2 staying where they are, and the rest coming down. So, you know, but with so much racing, not enough horses are getting the chance to go down the handicap because they're split and avoiding, and they just don't go down. Whereas in Ireland, there's 1 0 to 102 hurdle race on a Thursday. So you have 20 runners, the winner and the second, and even the third might go up. The third, the fourth and fifth will stay where they are, and the rest might slip back. So it is too much racing. But even having the same races on the same day at different venues, that's poor programming.
Right to the OFT about that. Officer Fair Trading were the one that decided that that was something that British racing should have to do. I'm wary of small field form. That's what I've thought about from last season. I wonder about the race standards for novice hurdles as well, i.e. the rating that you start off in life. And also, you were talking to me about one-sided form and how wary you're going to be about that.
Yeah, I was, and I think it goes to experience, and I think Envoy Allen. Now, there might have been other circumstances. As a classic example. I mean, he started in Down Royal in a pretty run-of-the-mill beginner's chase. He made the running and he won. But then when he went to the Drinmore, he ended up sitting up sides in front, not having to go too quickly, and didn't learn a whole lot more. Quickened up over the last 2 fences. He went to Punchestown where he thought he would have a race with Asterion Forlange. Asterion Forlange fell at the first, and then Voyallen ends up sauntering around again. Then he goes to the Cheltenham Festival. There's pace on. He's in behind horses. 5th fence, he's on the floor. So yeah, I do think when you get into small runner, one-sided affairs, novices don't tend to get the experience they should get. And the other one I have a problem with is the Dublin Racing Festival. Those 2 meetings have always been there. They were in the 3rd week in January and the 2nd week in February. They've just been put together. They haven't been created to help the Irish.
You tell them.
They haven't been created to help the Irish dominate. They were always there. They've just been put together. And that argument, that just doesn't wash on me at all.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, you mentioned Envoy Island, and that's useful because we're going to start talking about the staying chases. We've already got going. We've had the King George winner out. We've had the Gold Cup winner out already. So we're going to have a good look at these horses and think about where they stand. And we're going to start by looking back at the King George and the Gold Cup from last season. Frodon, who's out already, won the King George last season. And just going to recap, Ruby, how he did it.
Exact same as he did in Down Royal, Lydia. Bryony Frost lined him up wide, got out in front. But unlike the Gold Cup at Kempton, he just got dominant in front. And the reason for it is Santini's in the grey colour sitting 3rd, Black Op is on the inside. Now, he followed in the Gold Cup, but look at the way he jumps there. So, yeah, no, Frodon got to dominate on the front end of the King George. We already saw him in Down Royal do the same. And that's what's a help around Kempton. Looking forward to this year's King George, the rumours are that Manila Indo will go there, and Manila Indo won't allow Frodon to saunter around Kempton in front. All right, he led him in Down Royal, but that was Manila Indo's first run, looking quite round. I think when the heat is up at championship level like the King George, it won't be as easy for Frodon.
We'll see Manila Indo in action shortly now in the Gold Cup, but Henry de Bromhead made a comment about him, and when he said that he was heading for the King George, he said that he might not be your typical King George horse. What did Henry mean by that?
I suppose you're thinking about a faster horse, but is that a myth? Seymour Business wasn't that quick, and he won a couple of King Georges. The King George is about pace, not speed.
And accurate jumping.
Yeah, accurate jumping and pace. It's getting up to a very high tempo very early and being able to sustain it. It doesn't suit sloggers, but I'm not sure Manila Indo's a slugger.
I totally agree. Let's have a look at him in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. If we think back to how he ran in what was the RSA, is now the Brown Advisory, he's got pace, hasn't he?
He has got pace, and look, he books out in front of the first in the Gold Cup beside Frodon, but it's how he and Kenboy hassle Frodon throughout this race that really doesn't suit Frodon. Champ has gone very early, but the other thing was, if you keep your eyes on Album Photo in these next couple of shots in the yellow with the black checks, there's Manila Indo. This is the only semblance of a mistake he makes. Watch Album Photo from here on. He keeps making niggly jumping errors. Up too high behind, pitches out in his head. He does that several times. He's down the inside here, or was it a Plutar? Again, he misses. A Plutar eventually goes by him, but Manila Indo's jumping was on point every step of the way, whereas Album Photo's wasn't. And that was the huge difference, and that would help him in the King George to lie into Frodon. He was always on Frodon's tail, and look at the turn of foot the two of these show here, both Manila Indo and a Plutar, quick and away from Album Photo. He's no doubt about Manila Indo's stamina, but I don't think he's just a plotter.
I tend to agree. Aplutal, the runner-up there, stable companion, he heads to the Betfair Chase, hopefully. And we've also got Album Photo, as you mentioned, back in 3rd. Willie Mullins has said, as a result of looking back at the Gold Cup, that he thinks maybe the horse lacked a certain hard fitness.
Yeah, and that's possible. I mean, he had the very same prep, or basically the same prep as he'd had the year before, 2 years before, to win the Gold Cup twice. This year, would he give him a run in the John Durkin? I don't know. Will he run in the Savills at Leopardstown rather than the Savills Chase in Tramore? And may he run in the Irish Gold Cup en route? Possibly. Manila Indo went there and ran in the Irish Gold Cup, which has come back a week from its original slot, which probably benefits that. But yeah, I think he'll run him more.
Good.
But he's not getting any younger. That said, I did cop on a caption here earlier, his price for the Gold Cup. And you know that's going to be his target, you know where he's going. Is it hard to see a horse who's 1-2 beaten go back and win on the 4th attempt? Of course it is. But at 20 to 1 each way, so there's a bit of value there.
I see that. But we talked for probably 2 seasons now that for a horse that's won 2 Gold Cup, his jumping isn't superb, is it? And that's what was exposed last March.
It is, but he has always had that tendency. He fell at the last going to win the Grade 1 Novice Chase in Limerick. He fell at the second last in an RSA with me. He has been on the floor twice, but yeah, he's jumping as he's jumping. But when you get horses like Manila Indo who are completely on the money in front of you, it did put Albu Photos jumping under more pressure.
That's some betting just at the King George and the Gold Cup to focus your mind on this staying chaser division. Some horses have the Gold Cup as a target. Clan-des-Obeaux, for example, does not. He's got the Denman Chase defending his Betway Bowl success at Aintree and Punchestown on his dance card, but he is headed for the King George first off. Paul Nicholls thinks that he left the King George behind last year at the Betfair Chase. So let's move on down that list and go on to Frodon, as we've already seen the title holder in the King George. He's come back already at Down Royal. He's beaten Manila Indo and he's beaten Galvin as well. Yeah,
he did. And watch Galvin. That was Galvin's worst jump at the first. Jamie Cobb was a late sub into him, but I think he's given him a brilliant ride. Just like Bryony in front, they were two completely different rides, but they were two really good rides. Bryony's control of pace here. Watch how far she's in front of Manila Indo, Galvin and Delta Walker, how she slows it here past the winning post and Down Royal. But when she rounds the bend, she's gone. He misses the second fence past the stands, but he's increasing that gap all the way down there. Slowed it, increased it, slowed it, increased it. And that's okay first time out. Manila Indo looked particularly round in the Pred Ring. I was there working as a pundit. Frodon looked really well and fit. Yeah. Galvin had a run. I think the one that's going to improve the least, Lydia, is Galvin. I can't see him being a Gold Cup horse myself. I could be wrong. I know Frodon isn't. To me, the Gold Cup winner was the horse to take out of it, and that was Manila Indo. Delta Walk, Gordon Elliott said, was very undercooked. He didn't look it. He looked a picture in the ring. He would have been the paddock pick. But yeah, Frodon, that is also an art of training. And Paul Nicholls has bagged the Group 1, yes, a grade 1 with him now this season. Can I see him winning the King George? No, I think he could struggle for the rest of the year. It's
picking off targets, isn't it? Knowing what you have, and that is what Paul Nicholls is doing both with Frodon and with Clan-des-Obeaux. That sort of slow stretch pace that Bryony Frost set on Frodon at Down Royal is very reminiscent of the King George from last season. But you said you didn't think that she'd be able to do the same this time around?
I don't think so. I think, like, once bitten, twice shy. Yes. And I think lining up in the King George this year, the other riders will be aware of that, and they will keep pressing Frodon. Now, he could go back to Leopardstown to the Irish Gold Cup and get to do that. You know, Manila Indo runs in the King George. The Plutar probably go back to the Savills. Maybe he wouldn't, or the Irish Gold Cup. Maybe he wouldn't. But you might get to do it in Leopardstown with so much jumping in the back straight, long run from 3 out to 2 out. There's just points in Leopardstown where you can slow it. Whereas at Kempton, they'll keep on her this year.
I think that's right. I think Frodon might well end up going there. That would be great to see. Right, let's have a look at some second season chasers, shall we? We can start with Chantry House because his season has started already in that intermediate chase that Nicky Henderson likes so much. He's won it in the past with Santini, not very impressively, and with Mike Bite, much more so. This time, Chantry House faced just the one rival, who was the Klutz, the big breakaway.
Yeah, and look, and it was an idea for Chantry House, and this is where he jumps best, when the big breakaway jumps beside him. He was much better at the last fence and then down the hill past the stands. If you pick him up again, when the big breakaway is taking on Chantry House and he's competitive, he was really good and through the air. Now, the big breakaway gets tired, but watch Chantry House over the 3 railway fences. Very good at the first one. Knuckles here at the back of the second one, but picks himself up and absolutely pings the last one. You know, it was professional. That's all you could say. He's alive, he's well, but it's a good starting point, and it sets him up with that run under his belt for a bigger target. Now, I'm not sure, will that be the King George? I'm assuming that's where he'll go next. But, you know, he got a bit tired, but didn't have to get knocked about to win.
Nicky Henderson was slightly mysterious about the next target. He seemed to concede that the King George would be next, but he said they had stuff to talk about. I can't imagine where you might go other than the King George.
Well, you're trying to think of races. It's unlikely you'll see him in the Betfair Chase. Could he go to Ascot, what used to be the Amelin Chase, I don't know what it is now, back in Trip? Maybe that's where he go, or else it's the Savills and the King George. There aren't many options for him when he gets to Christmas time. He could come to Tramore.
I think he should be moving into the big league. I mean,
I'd say he will too. And it's an interesting one, but I don't recall JP McManus horse winning the King George.
I can't think of one either.
So I'd say that's where he'd be going.
Okay. Let's move on now to Shan Blue, shall we? He was all set to win the Charlie Hall really very impressively. Last season he won the Quarto Star at Kempton. There was a rush of blood to the head at the Cheltenham Festival. He was over the top at Aintree, but this was back to his best, up against Surname.
Yeah, and Surname didn't do himself a whole pile of favours. I think Surname was like the old Surname, but over-raced, and he was too keen, and he just pulled himself into the ground, and it's more evident even on the next circuit now, away from the winning post into the back straight, where you see how high Harry Cobden's hands are as he's trying to get Surname back. He's charging, and Shan Blue is cantering behind him. Now watch Fussell Raffles here. There's no doubt Harry Skelton heard Darryl Jacob jumping that fence, so he's, what do I do now? So he takes it off Surname, who's looking to get a breather, but he's definitely thinking Darryl is right behind me, because he would have heard him jumping the fence. And I most certainly didn't expect this reaction from Shan Blue when he starts to quicken off the bend. And when I was watching it live, he clocked almost 38 miles an hour here at one stage. He just kicked through the gears to the fourth last and pings it, and then Harry doesn't hear anything. There's silence behind him because he's gone so clear. He sits and he steps into the third last. But it did show this horse has a hell of a lot of ability.
Absolutely.
And does it raise more question marks than answers? It probably does, because do you come back in trip with him, or do you have to stretch him out?
Well, at the moment they're not going to do anything with him. They're backing
he's
right
on
off.
hold. But you know, and he's lucky to get up, and it was great to see him getting up. Is he a Ryanair horse?
Could be.
That's what it looked like to me.
I don't know whether
speed and gears he showed there.
I don't even know whether he wants Cheltenham at all. I think he looks better on a flat track.
Yeah, maybe. And if that's the case, then he goes to Aintree and go to Punches now. You know, Grade 1 races in both places, so he can do either, both, or them all. And but he definitely surprised me how quickly he put Surname at over race, but how quickly he just kicked Fussell Raffles aside from the fifth last to the fourth last, and the distance and the speed he got up. I didn't ever think Shan Blue would do that.
Well, it's back to the exciting performance at Kempton. I thought it was brilliant over Christmas, but then the form just sort of dropped away for various reasons. You can have a look at Dan Skelton's social media account. He's explained that Shan Blue is still a bit sore in the neck as a result of that fall, and so he doesn't go for the Ladbrokes Trophy or even for the King George. They're going to be thinking about the second half of the season with him. He's got a very tempting looking handicap mark still. I mean, he's thrown in.
Yeah, but do you want Grade 1 horse or handicaps over here?
Both. Why not both? You've got plenty of time.
The handicappers win the handicaps, that the graded horses run the graded races.
Yeah, you can get one first and then move into the graded races.
Give him a grueler, like you do with all your novice hurlers in the Bedfair Hurl, and then wonder why you can't compete in the Supreme. But hey,
this from the man who wanted to run a Grade 1 winner in a Grade 2 race last season.
Telling you, take what's coming.
Well, at least you've learned. Let's have a look at what's happened at Carlisle, shall we? Because there was a really fascinating intermediate chase there. Thankfully, it had more runners than the one at Sandown. It involved Espoir de Rome there with a big white sheepskin noseband. Ahoy Senor, who was a novice, and we'll talk about him later. He's the one in front. And Fiddler on the Roof in the navy with the yellow braces.
Yeah, and he eventually wins. I thought it was a really pleasing chasing debut from Ahoy Senor. He just overjumps or gets a bit high, at the second last, and eventually gets rid of Derek Foxwell. He didn't have much chance to stay on him. Fiddler on the Roof kept going really well. But Lydia, it was the third horse that you wanted to talk about here. And obviously he did fall when in front of Chantry House at Aintree. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking he blew up. He looks like he wasn't fit enough. To me, he was trying to go with them from 2 out and then absolutely couldn't. I mean, I'm not dismissing Fiddler on the Roof either, who looks like he's an improved performer. He's done well to win here over a trip that's probably short of his best. Espoir de Rome, I think, is going for that Grade 2 at Ascot that Imperial Aura, his stable companion, won last season, and Kim Bailey is going to creep him up slowly. But, I mean, it could have been end-of-term stuff, what he did at Aintree when he had Chantry House. I think under pressure, Shan Blue miles behind at Aintree when he tipped up. I didn't think he looked tired at the time. It did look like a good performance.
It did. He just got so high at Aintree. It wasn't the jump of a really tired horse at the height he was able to get. But yeah, I just think he has to improve a good bit to get to the Gold Cup level.
Absolutely.
And Fiddler on the Roof the same. Look, the Tizard horses are obviously a lot healthier this year than they were last year. That's what the way they appear to be running anyway. So look, he has a lot of experience, Fiddler on the Roof, and maybe he will eventually fulfil the potential he's always looked like it's there.
Yeah, they're sort of trying to choose between the Ladbrokes Trophy and the Betfair Chase with him. Even talk about the King George, it's something they did with Lost in Translation in his second season, for example. So that's our thoughts on where we stand with the staying chasing division so far. Of course, we had the disappointment of finding out that Monkfish won't be part of it. Monkfish, of course, who was such a pretty impressive winner of the Brown Advisory. I think he would have been more at home on the new course than the old course myself, but sadly he's done a tendon. Yeah,
he has done a tendon, and obviously was disappointed at the Punchestown Festival. I don't think he ever got into a rhythm in Cheltenham in the RSA. He was a Brown Advisory, sorry. He was making the run and missed the first and was always at 6s and 7s. But yeah, look, he's out for the season and hopefully he'll come back next year. But tendon injuries are tendon injuries.
And what would be your thinking? I mean, do horses tend to retain their ability, and how severe is this one?
It's the favourite one in racing. It's like being a little bit pregnant. When you have a tendon, you have a tendon. And you prefer a fracture, to tell you the truth.
There's another horse I was going to mention in this section as a potential big price horse for the Gold Cup, but I've since found out via social media that Latest Exhibition has got the aim of the Stayers Hurdle this season, because they felt he hasn't quite taken to fences in the same way that he attacks a hurdle, and hence he's in the Hatton's Grace.
Yeah, you highlighted that very early on last season. He's jumping at Punchestown, jumping to his right or left, whichever direction it was. But yeah, and he was a really decent novice hurdler. He just went down to Monkfish, and he's right beside Time Hill. And if you're thinking Time Hill went and won an entry, he has to be in the mix as a serious Stayers hurdle contender. If you're the connections of Latest Exhibition, that's the form line you're looking at. So I can see why he's going back to what looks a weaker division when you look at where he'd have to go over fences into the Gold Cup to take on Manila Indo, Plutar, even an Alboon Photo. You're running the Ryanair, you could have a Shan Blue, you will have Allaho, so where are you going? Yeah, I know what I'd be doing, exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I do think it's a good call, and it's really interesting. I think what you've just said there really highlights the strength of this division and how strong it is. So that's the Staying Chasers, and we are going to be talking about a horse that runs in the Staying Hurdle division later on in the show. Now, we asked you which juvenile performance had most impressed you so far this season. We put a poll up, and I'll tell you what impressed me. It was only up for about an hour and there was already 170 votes. I mean, I'm so grateful to you. I do wonder what kind of lives you all have, but nonetheless, I'm very grateful to you. Phil Dorr was the winner. He beat In This World. What did you make of Phil Dorr?
I'm not surprised Phil Dorr won the vote. I was very impressed with him in Down Royal. Smashing looking individual, quick and smartly down the hill. Jumped brilliantly under Davy Russell, and I thought set a very high standard for such an early time in the season for juvenile hurdlers.
And how about In This World, the Warwick winner for the Skeltons?
I couldn't put the same meat on the form. There was nothing wrong visually with what he did, but I understood Phil Dorr's form better.
Okay. Well, typical of your comments came from Cammy Kennedy, and he said, Phil Dorr, for me, jumped better than many established hurdlers I've seen, and Gordon sent Quilixios to the same race last year, but we likely haven't seen at least half the Triumph Hurdle horses yet, so it's too early to tell how good he can really be. How true that is, Ruby?
It is.
Right. We also asked you which performance so far this season made you ponder whether it's too early to be thinking about the Cheltenham Festival. I love this response from Ross Miller. Talk about thinking in advance. Henri II, but more for the 2025 festival over the fence. Monster.
So much for a 5-year plan. That's a 3-year one.
Extraordinary. Then we've got Tom Foley, who got in touch, and he mentioned Impervious, who's a mare trained by Cole Murphy. You know this mare?
Yeah, I would agree completely. Won a 2 miles and 3 furlong maiden hurdle at Cork, followed up at a 2.5 mile win over in a novice hurdle at Listowel, and then dropped back to 2 miles to win the mare's Grade 3 hurdle at the Down Royal, big meeting in Down Royal. Very impressed with her, and I would have to think that the mare's novice hurdle at the festival would be a target for her, especially the way the programme is for mare's novices.
Yes.
With the Grade 1 and Ferryhouse coming after that, over 2.5 miles as well. Strong stayer, new course will suit her.
Yeah, she's on that trajectory. The Goat has been in touch. Greatest of all time. Goatee at Goatee Muck Boatface. Fantastic name for starters. Nickelback is nominated by the Goat for Sarah Humphrey. Nick Schofield was raving about him. 33-1 for the Ballymore, but should be half that price, shouldn't they all? Then we've got Pink in the Park. Do you know about Pink in the Park?
Yeah, bolted in a bumper in the stall. Very, very impressive. I'd imagine the winner's bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival and Cheltenham bumper, I'd a guess.
And finally, we've got a dingbat. What do you think Louise Gaunt is suggesting there?
Countdown? I have no idea.
I think it's a notebook.
What about
I suspect it's a notebook.
What about him?
Nice. Now it's time to talk about the 2-mile hurling division, and this, Ruby, is the division that Honeysuckle bestrode last season.
Yeah, absolutely dominated Lydia, and we will get into her in more detail when she gets closer to the track. We're not going to see her this weekend, but yeah, she was brilliant. But we'll pick the odd hole in her when we do analyse that.
Yeah, she's entered in the Hatter's Grace in a couple of weeks' time, so that is when we will talk about her. She was very impressive and jumped well at Cheltenham. What did Ruby make of her performance at Punchestown? You'll find out later in the series. But we are thinking about the Morgiana, which is staged at Punchestown this Sunday, and to that end we're going to reflect on the Aintree Hurdle, and that involves Abacadabras. He finally got that big race win that he looked capable of. That is Jason the Militant going out the side door.
Yeah, that just shows how much merit you put on Irish form, Lydia, seeing as he had won the Morgiana Grade 1 hurdle last year as well. So this finally wasn't hitting the heights at the top level. But what does he beat? Bouvard there on the way down, and Buzz, who was coming out of handicaps. So probably wasn't the strongest Grade 1 that was ever run in Aintree, but he kept at it well. Typical Abacadabra, ears pricked, but he won the Morgiana last year. He'll go back there this weekend and he'll be the one to beat rating wise with his course form. But form has shown us he's just below, he's a good bit below Honeysuckle.
I do take your point about the Grade 1 successes, and I suppose that people were sort of framing a case that the champion hurdle would be set up to suit him really well, and he obviously exited quite early. But you're right, how deep was that Aintree hurdle now that I come to think about it?
I know Buzz went and won the Cesarewitch, but he beat Burn Victory, and I'd say he was really well handicapped. But look, only time will tell, and Buzz is an improving horse, and it's a good, great training performance to win the Cesarewitch with him. But time will tell. I think if you're going to compete in the champion hurdle, you need to be getting in front of Abacadabra.
Might Buzz make the grade this season?
Potentially. We'll have to see him. Be interesting to see where he starts. He obviously didn't go to the Elite. He's not going to the Morgiana. It will be interesting to see where he starts. But that said, they will be soon enough after a tough race like the Cesarewitch.
OK, well, let's have a look at the Morgiana and the entries as things stand forward. We've already talked about Abacadabras. Durasso's already got a significant scalp this season. The rest of them, Willie Mullins 4 there. Which of them do you think we're likeliest to see?
Well, Stormy Island is ruled out of a lot of the mares' races in Ireland this season because she won the Grade 1s last year. So a lot of the mares' races until after Christmas exclude Grade 1 winners. So she'll either have to go there or the Morgiana or the Hatton's Grace. Echoes and Rain, Willie has hinted that this was her target for quite a while, and it'll be interesting to see what he does with Zanahiyr and Sharjah. Zanahiyr is a former winner of the race. Sharjah was beaten in it that same year. So and Zanahiyr is the race fit one that's been in good form. He's won the Galway Hurdle, he won a Tipperary, and it will be interesting. Echoes and Rain, I guess if there's a novice hurdler from last season that has stayed hurdling, when you think Bob Ollinger, Appreciated, etc., are all going chasing, this could be the best novice hurdler from last season that's staying over hurdles, and it'll be interesting to see if she can improve to get in the mix. But numerically, she has a fair bit of improvement to do. Very
much so, but we need some new life in this division, really, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And this filly didn't travel to the UK. She was quite hot last year. She was very good at Fairyhouse, went back and won at Punchestown. Maybe she could, but till they go to the track, you don't know.
Now, Zanahiyr was amongst those entries. He started his season off already as well, but let's start by reflecting on what he achieved as a juvenile. You and I were all for him until he got to the Cheltenham Festival, and then they put on that first-time tongue-tie, and I thought, ooh,
alarm bells. But what he did too in the Triumph, Lydia, you see his head there with Jack Kennedy, and watch him even more so going to this hurdle and again the back of it. He was quite keen on the Triumph. It was something I'd noticed about him before. He took a good bite with Jack, and watch Rachel and Quilixius. She moves straight up here to make sure Jack doesn't slip through on the inside and get get to the front. She wants to be dictating that race. Now, I initially thought, if Jack had made more use of Zanahiyr, he may well have won the Triumph. On reflection, watching it a second time, I was just disappointed with him. He was close enough turning in to win the race, gets himself a long way back by the time he gets to the back of the last hurdle, and eventually plugs on purely because he was outpaced.
I totally agree. And Punchestown?
Faster track as well. I don't know, it's a very hard year for 4-year-olds rising 5, and it'll be interesting to see who gets on, but they're very hard horses to place. One every so often wins a champion hurdle, but a hell of a lot don't.
And that tongue tie indicates there might be some sort of issue in terms of breathing. You don't have to declare breathing operations in Ireland, is that right?
But a tongue tie wouldn't suggest, it would tell you. You don't put them on for decoration.
It became a fashion with some girls, but yeah, okay, I take your point. So, but it also, removal of it doesn't necessarily mean that you've had a wind operation. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes horses that have had a wind operation then retain the tongue tie, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but yeah, it would be an alarm bell to me when it goes on. But then when they start taking it off again, it would also be an alarm bell. Look, Zanahiyr is going to the Morgiana with a run.
Should we have a look at that run?
Do, and it was in the north. It was a tactical enough race where he had to make his own run, and Caskmate was backed into almost favouritism at one stage to turn him over. Jack Kennedy made the running on him, but he went steadily and built the race up. And I was impressed with him down the straight. He quickened up really smartly and put Caskmate in his place. Bonark was behind him in third, but and Bonark wouldn't be good enough. But Zanahiyr showed the gears here that he didn't show off the bend in the Triumph hurdle. So he has me a bit puzzled.
Okay, I think we need to find out more when he's not bossing a race from the front. And at one point he looked in trouble against Caskmate, which really surprised me. Yeah,
it does, but it's a fast track down Royal that hadn't gone quick. That's racing downhill, but like in 2 seconds. I know Caskmate makes a mistake, but this race to me was over when they took off anyway.
I tend to agree. Interesting what they're able to achieve with Zanahiyr this time around, but he's started the season well with this success. Another horse that started the season well is So Royal. Now we know this horse, he's like a piece of furniture at the Cheltenham Festival. It couldn't be the Cheltenham Festival really without them. He was so unfortunate in the champion chase when he finally got his ground, and he started this season already with a win at the Elite Hurdle at Wincanton. Notably, Belfast Banter was behind him in third.
Yeah, and he won in Kempton as well, didn't he? This was his second run. Both flat tracks, fast. He's very professional in the way he jumps, and I think, in fairness to Alan King, he's picking off pots with him that he's capable of winning. But when the going gets tough and the races get a bit better, he just falls short. But that again is like Paul winning the racing down Royal with Frodon. You have horses you have to win races with, and Alan King is doing that with So Royal.
Absolutely. Belfast Banter, who went on to win at Grade 1 level at Aintree, having won the county hurdle.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Dusart runs this weekend. He was third in that race. I think that was a clever bit of placing with a really experienced horse into a fast run Grade 1 novice hurdle. I think he's overachieved in his life.
I think you're probably right. Right, we'll leave the 2-mile hurdlers behind, and now it's time for Ruby to have a look at a horse that's at the top. Well, at the end of last season and throughout last season was at the top of the 3-mile tree, and he's going to analyse this.
So last season's Paddy Power Stayers hurdle winner, Flooring Portrait, made his reappearance last Sunday in the Liz Mullen hurdle at Navan, where he ended up on the floor. So I'm going to give you my opinion as to how and why. So Flooring Portrait is a notoriously difficult ride. He's in the black colours with the white sleeves, but he's good and straight at the first hurdle where Danny Mullins never asked him to jump. Watch him here though. Danny 1, 2, go on, but watch on the landing side. Flooring Porter's gone in off the track, and Danny Mullins has to wrestle him back out onto it. And the camera flicks to show you the next shot, which is a head-on. Danny sits quiet at that hurdle, but he's still got a little bit to his left. So that's in Danny Mullins' head. If I ask this horse to jump, he's going to go violently left, which he's proven. Third last hurdle, Danny sits quiet and he goes quite straight. But this race is now starting to quicken and they run down to the second last hurdle. But Danny doesn't want to ask him because he's going to go violently left if he does. So he sits to let him pop, but with the speed up, Flooring Porter comes himself and catches the top bar. I can understand why Danny wasn't going for the jump, because if he goes left, keep looking, there's a white doll coming up pretty soon, which is the running rail, and he's in that. I can see why Danny Mullins sat quiet. Some people will be giving out, but I'd have done the same thing.
What I really like about that is that you've gone through the whole race and explained what's in his mind and the decisions he's made at each hurdle, and it becomes very clear this propensity to go left and needing an inside rail. Gavin Conwell was talking a lot about that last season.
Yeah, and big time. And you saw him when he went back to Punchestown without a running rail and how worked up he got. There is a kink in Flooring Porter. He's a hell of a good racehorse, but riding is all about reacting to what happens. And Flooring Porter told Danny Mullins what he would do if you let go of my head. So that's why he didn't.
So from people watching on who are fans of Flooring Porter, you need to have a particular set of circumstances when you want to be on his side? Yeah,
Leopardstown suits him. Most of the hurdles are close to a running rail. Stairs hurdles shouldn't have, because they're all island hurdles in Cheltenham. But I think at peak fitness and just going a really strong gallop end to end suits him, where you never have to touch his mouth.
Who is the coming force in this division, potentially? You talk about it being weak. We've mentioned latest exhibition earlier in the show.
Weak is wrong. Open is probably the way of putting it. Latest exhibition, Time Hill, and of course Classical Dream.
Time Hill, you love Time Hill.
Have a soft spot for him. He ran bad in France. I wouldn't mind that, going there first time up when the French have been targeted and have all had prep runs, is a very hard thing to do.
And Classical Dream, who was an impressive winner at Punchestown, won the Supreme Hurdle in his day, but has been sidelined for quite a long time. Can we rely on him to stay injury-free?
No, you can't. Unfortunately, that's his history. That's we'll be all hoping in Close Sutton that he can stay injury-free. But no, a horse's history is a horse's history, and he is fragile.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the 3 mile staying hurdlers division. We're going to move on next to the Novice Chases. Now, Ruby likes to tease me that I'm obsessed by juvenile hurdlers, but if there is a division I'm obsessed with, it is Novice Chases. I absolutely love novice chasing.
Oh, it is, and it's, I suppose, the anticipation of what they can do, but it's also seeing what horses do take to it. Some really take to jumping, some improve, and some get worse. Unfortunately, that's not appreciated here because you're giving your hurdle rating straight away, whether you're good enough or not, which I think is bonkers.
I think there's going to be £1 in the jar every time you have a go at handicapping. I'm not going to discourage you from doing it because it'll get a nice little kitty and we can use it for the pub later.
And look, the Racing Down Royal we're going to show you proves it.
Yes, now this is Lifetime Ambition. This is a really good point actually, because this was a horse that was above average as a hurdler, but looks like he's going to be a lot better than that over fences.
Does. Clapped eyes in the first fence there with Sean O'Keefe in red and white colours and just went faster and pinged it. Now the horse in the Jigginstown colours, the maroon, is Beacon Edge. Watch the height he goes here. He's a much superior hurdler to Lifetime Ambition in front, and you have Vanillier in the middle. But Lifetime Ambition, he just pings fences. Beacon Edge, it's all grab. Can I make that jump? Just about. And this one here, watch Beacon Edge. This really exposes his scope. Really stretching for it. He's not that far off the fence. He's not going to be quite as good a chaser as he was hurdler, whereas Lifetime Ambition, whose attitude for fences has improved him. Vanillier was definitely the one to take out about going back up in trip.
Yes.
But that to me just proves why you shouldn't have chasers running off their hurdle marks, because they're back to front.
I tease you, but I do very much take your point, and Lifetime Ambition is the poster boy for that argument. Really liked Vanillier. With Beacon Edge, do you think he can improve? Is he going to get better?
He will improve and he will get better. But when it gets down to it and you need one big jump to win your race, he doesn't have it.
Okay, let's move on to Bravemansgame, shall we? This is a horse that we know from last season. He was a really, really good novice hurdler for Paul Nicholls, and he won the Challow, for example, Grade 1, and then he went on to be beaten at the Cheltenham Festival. That was by Bob Ollinger. He's already switched to fences this season, and he ran in quite a difficult race. He took on Fusel Raffles and the Big Breakaway in an intermediate chase.
Yeah, and a really good performance. You know, both you and I were impressed with the high senior behind Fiddler on the Roof. Much the same race, but Bravemansgame delivered, and you'd have to like what he did, the way he jumped, how he shortened. When Harry Cobden wanted to jump, the way he could stand back, he was flawless.
He was really, really very good indeed. He isn't running at Cheltenham this weekend because the ground is a bit too quick. We might see him, rain permitting, at Newbury. Let's move on to Third Time Lucki, shall we? This horse has really taken to fences as well. We've seen him already at Cheltenham winning at October by a wide margin. Yeah,
he was quite keen. Obviously, Buddy Rich is in the red and white. He sets an okay standard in that he has a lot of experience. But Third Time Lucki, as he goes through the race, his jumping just warms up and he gets better. Jumps his way to the front early in the back straight. Harry Skelton lets him stride along, but he was good, in or out. but it was his enthusiasm. When he spots the fences coming, this horse wants to go. He wants to go and jump. And that I do like. You need that in a chaser. You hate horses that are backing off and slowing down. This fella claps eyes and just wants to get me there. Come on, I want to jump.
If anything, on the home turn, Harry Skelton is having to pull him back, isn't he? He's just going so readily. Here we are.
Yeah, I know, but the race is over and Harry's, hoping to get up the straight if he can. But this horse, I was really taken with him. He half goes to go, takes him back, and he shortens.
It's lovely, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and again at the last, Buddy Rich runs him down-ish in the end, but Buddy Rich is what he is.
Well, let's talk about Buddy Rich because it's relevant to Ballyadam, and that's one of the horses that you wanted to pick out that you think hasn't taken so well to fences. Buddy Rich has since come out and beaten Ballyadam.
Yeah, he has, and Ballyadam was a 148 rated hurdler. Now he lined up in Punchestown and he fell at the first. That can happen. Happen any horse, mistakes happen, and he gets a pretty heavy fall. Cape Gentleman, Buddy Rich are beside him, gets it wrong and turns over. Thankfully, both Dara and Keefe and Ballyadam jump up and they go to Navan for his second run. But watch him at the first fence, Rachel Blackmore. Awkward. Nothing to like about it. Next fence again, just about up and over. But the fourth last is the real telling fence here. Watch Rachel in the red colours. She spots a strike, go on, just gets there. That's the limit of his scope. Now he will get a method and he might win races, but he's not going to be a 148 rated hurdler. But we'll go with the English way of doing it. So this is 148. He beats him by 6 lengths, 156. Third time lucky, 166. Is that correct?
I don't know. I like your linear handicapping though.
This the computer says.
Right, so at the moment, you mentioned a Hoysenor. We saw him briefly in that intermediate chase. We saw him briefly in that intermediate chase. He did kind of sprawl on landing. He was a bit unlucky to go at the second last. But other than that, it was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved him last year in entry when he won. I think he's a horse with a huge future. So, yeah, look, hopefully he's okay after sprawling. He didn't pull any muscles or any little tweaks. But, yeah, I'd like him.
And briefly on Gabinarco, you think that he made a good...
Again, another horse that just looked... The fences improved him. Fakira was in the same race, not so sure he was in the same boat, but Gabinarco loved it. And you've got a couple of good ones this weekend. You've Bob Ollinger in Punchestown, Cape Gentleman as well, who's looked rock solid, and you've got the Novice Chases here in Cheltenham. Yeah,
those races, I'm really looking forward to Bob Ollinger making his debut over fences, but Cape Gentleman has already taken well to fences. How about the races at Cheltenham? We've got some small field Novice Chases, or we have so far.
Yeah, and he'll have a test. Gina Lime sets a fair standard, and she sets her stall out. She'll jump and go. That'll suit my Drogo. He looked really good at entry. Dan Skelton even has gone the softly route with him, and hopefully he'll become the horse he thinks he can be.
Gina Lime, she's very put the kettle on in terms of profile, isn't she? Didn't she come here, win this, having won several chases?
Yeah, she could have done it. No, she won the 2 mile.
The 2 mile. Okay, so come to this meeting with the same kind of profile.
Yeah, Gina Lime loves the trip and has plenty of experience.
Okay. On the Saturday, we also have a 2 mile event, and that has Third Time Lucki in it, and also Mick Pastor and Captain Tomcat. We can have a look at those horses in action because Captain Tomcat has already beaten Mick Pastor. That was in a Grade 2 at Wincanton. Bravemansgame was due to run in it, again ground too fast. Captain Tomcat manages to win despite going out to his left all the time.
Yeah, and that was 2.5, wasn't it? Sort of coming back down in trip, the way Mick Pastor travelled, he looks the faster horse. Going to 2 out, you're thinking, yeah, Mick Pastor wins here, jumps by Captain Tomcat, but stamina kicks in then and Mick Pastor gets outstayed. Coming down in trip will definitely suit Paul Nicholas' runner, but whether either will be good enough to be Third Time Lucki, time will tell.
Yeah, they've both done well over the summer jumping period, haven't they? They've already clocked up quite a few chase starts. They're proficient jumpers, but this is the transitional time of year, isn't it?
But it is, but you're getting these horses at the November meeting because of the weather and the ground. They'd usually be Wincanton and gone, but they're getting another go because of the ground.
Then the Sunday as well, we've got a 3 mile Novices Chase at Cheltenham, and we can have a look at the entries for that. Does he know for Kim Bailey and 3 under through 5 are interesting, as is Oscar Elite, who was second in the Albert Bartlett and third in the Sefton. He's making his chase debut.
Yeah, and we will review them all, Lydia, next week or whenever we get time. But does he know? Has a kink in him, but he's a fair horse.
Yeah, it should be really interesting for the Novice Chasers, not just over this weekend, but during the rest of the season. So that's it. We've come to the end of our first Road to Cheltenham. Thank you very much, Ruby, for making the trip over. We'll be back on Zoom next week.
Yeah,
we will be. other virtual meeting platforms are available. A mention is not an endorsement. And you can also have a look at the column that accompanies this show on racingtv.com/Road to Cheltenham. Ruby, thank you.
Cheers, Lydia. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
The home of jump racing. This is where the magic happens. Feel like a Cheltenham favourite with Paddy Power.